Hello, and welcome to my top 10 anime of last year. This will be my final 2022 video. We are finally through. At first, I thought of this as going to be another pretty significant project. I do actually have a lot to say about each and every one of these shows. Even now, after having already said so much about them in previous videos. But I thought, as a change of pace, wouldn't it be nice to make like a reasonably length anime video and move on to new exciting projects of 2023, the month that we're already, or the year that we're already almost 2 months into. And in the end, I decided to do, a relatively short wrap up. If you're curious about extended takes on any of these, please just check out the corresponding season's anime review video, where I probably talk about it for a solid 10-15 minutes or more. Jumping right in then, at the start, at number 10, we have the Orbital Children. I'm still pissed off that this is 6 episodes only. I kind of keep going back and forth on my opinion on this Netflix anime era, and even though it enabled such great things as Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the fact that somewhere at some point some shiftless, shitless, milquetoast piece of shit Netflix executive managed to convince ESO to pare this down to 6 episodes from what I think it ought to be like 26 or something is such a tragedy. Yeah, I mean, I think more and more we're seeing the idea that like Netflix is good for developing ideas that may not have been developed otherwise, which is fantastic. But then they have such this paranoid, extremely overreactive, completely phobic to losing money or investing or anything thinking beyond the next quarter I approach to actually investing in shows and prolonging them, which is leading to this huge epidemic of stuff being canceled after just one season or half a season, stuff never being able to find its audience. The number of sitcoms that have been canceled after just 1 or 2 seasons, if you think of all the best sitcoms, if you think of your favorite sitcoms, which ones were best in their first 2 seasons? Almost none of them. Almost all of them take until season 3, 4, even 5 or 6 to really hit their stride and start excelling. And it's pathetic. It's like the most weak-willed, asinine way of thinking about creative production. It pisses me off. Why did I start with this? I'm so mad. But anyways, the show is still really, really good. And I think the thing that makes me so infuriated is that I could watch just slice of life, zero plot, zero characters even, a Playtime-esque series directed by Ito showing his imaginative world of the future. I would have been happy with that. And this is both more and less, but it's great. Next we have Healer Girl. Honestly, this show made me convinced that anime in the format of a musical, which I think the very idea of would have made me cringe not that long ago, it could actually be the genre of the future. The way that music is woven into this world, the lore that singing is actually medicine in this world, the storytelling, finding just the perfect ways to incorporate singing and musical sequences and stuff on so many different levels. And the music is so lovely too. It's not the super generic, over-engineered city pop type stuff that... Actually, I wouldn't even call it city pop. Like, I think at one point you could point this genre's origins to city pop, but this isn't worth getting into. There's a certain type of pop music that almost all anime uses for insert songs and for OPs and for the idol songs in all idol anime. And this is very, very different than that. It's just lovely choral music. I'm trying to get back into singing. I want to not just be a passive recipient of the love that comes from this type of singing, but instead remember how to produce it myself and to get back up to my best in singing, which I haven't done seriously in almost 10 years now. So I'm going to try to join a choir this summer, or this spring, I guess, more likely. Very, very exciting, very intimidating. We'll do our best. Next, at number 8, we have Chainsaw Man. In the original review, I really complained about the show a lot, and I kind of talked about, you know, how its stylistic objectives really departed from my stylistic expectations, and how disappointing that was. But it still really kicks ass. And you know, even if it wasn't what I love in anime, there are a lot of things that are what I love in Hollywood filmmaking, in that era of films. They're the things that I love when I go back and I watch Coen Brothers movies or Tarantino movies, movies that I really blew my mind in my teens, and that I still love today, that I still really appreciate today. As long as they keep adapting it, as long as this doesn't get fucking Netflixed, because there's all the stuff that I love most in the manga, like at the point that the anime got to, I was already hooked on the manga for sure. Like I was already committed to read this whole thing and to see it through, and I was having a blast. But my favorite parts, almost all of them, are past this. All the scenes that I think of most regularly are past this. A lot of my favorite characters are past this. So they better friggin' keep going, okay? Like, they better be working on season 2 right now. The biggest complaint, though, in my mind, is that there's a very early scene right after Denji gets hired by the Japanese government's devil elimination unit. He's singing in the bathtub, and he's singing about how his job is great because there's a union and there's guaranteed holidays. And then in the anime, he doesn't sing about any of that. He just sings nonsense syllables, and the idea is that he's just goofy and happy. But I feel like that's deliberate censorship, because you know who the fuck isn't unionized? Animators. Animators have no working holidays, like no paid vacation, I mean. Animators have no union representing them. Animators are treated like shit by so many different studios. This is deliberate censorship. I won't hear any other theory. Alright, at 7, we have Machikado Mazoku Season 2. This is everything I like about anime. In strong contrast to Chainsaw Man, this is anime qua anime for me, and it just hits every single beat that I enjoy from a show, and in a tradition that goes all the way back to like the 80s, making shows like this so lively, so nonsensical, so fun. Total chaos, non-sex gags, completely complicated, perhaps overly complicated lore, and lots of Yuri. As I talked about with Spy Family, in my big Spy Family Season 2 review, there's a lot of things that emerge when a season kind of switches gears from we need to make an impact, we need to grow our audience, we need to establish what kind of tone and range the series is going to have, and we need to have like a lot of like really major moments to kind of draw people in. And then it hits this other gear of, okay, we can kind of just run indefinitely now. We need to tell a story that keeps appealing to the same fans. And I talked at length about the sort of things that change, and we see all of those changes here, for better and for worse. But I, again, like Chainsaw Man, so many of my favorite moments are still to come. The manga is on like an extended hiatus right now, but it was building up to some really interesting, extremely significant plot revelations. And in the midst of that, just a lot of other really fun, wacky adventures too that I would love to see animated. Next, we have the second season of Pop Team Epic. I was thinking about it, in the review I talked about the deep love you can feel emanating from this show. And what I started thinking about it is, if you look at a tan wave of irony and aggression, where irony lives... Wait, I think this is meant to say affection! Or no, wait. No, I remember. Yeah, below the x-axis, you have irony and aggression, and then above the x-axis, you have sincerity and joy and love. I guess it's like a negative tan wave that once we hit the absolute nadir of irony and aggression, it just infinitely quickly loops around in an asymmetric point that you can never measure to sincerity and joy and love. that before your eyes, before you even realize, in the span of 0 frames, you suddenly realize that despite all the series' aggression and abrasive elements and contempt for the viewer and ironic self-degradation, that this is actually just a huge celebration of anime and of the people who make it and of the history of anime and the outpouring of love for the future of anime too. And like, can you imagine anything more fun than working on this show? One of the endings has our famous mascot character costume versions of Popiko and Pipimi wandering around the offices of both the publisher of Pop Team Epic and then also Kamikaze Doga, the studio that makes Pop Team Epic. And they're just barging into meetings and annoying people. And I don't know, like, I'm sure they're overworked. I'm sure it's a stressful job. But it just seems like so much fun to be in that space. Just the creative energy must be so overwhelming. But yeah, as I said, this was not an easy show to make. In many ways, this show has the most impressive production of like anything this year. Just in terms of the variety they had to do and the wide range of talents they had to call on and the coordination of working with all these different groups of people and still producing something that's semi-coherent. What gives us awe is forged. Sleepless blood. Next, at number 5, we have Ousama Ranking, the Ranking of Kings. There was a line in the second OP that really, really stuck with me, and I thought about it almost constantly, like a mantra. Shake off the power that comes from malice. It's up there with I suffered unto distraction as lines that I feel changed my life over the course of 2022. And I don't need to get into it, but what strikes me is that small things like that, small moments of inter-character relationships and kind of just digging into the emotions that emerge from, any such scenario, betrayal or compassion or loyalty or coming to someone's aid, understanding the plight of someone much different than you. These things that are laid out in such weird circumstances are so moving just in that core resonant emotional level. Even though the character is fantastical and Boji and Kage are so atypical as characters, so difficult at first to relate to and to understand, it feels resonant even in your like day-to-day life. That I feel like it's an amazing moral fable that teaches you lessons that extend. And even though the lessons may sound like trite and cliche and obvious, I've said this so many times before that it's not about the novelty of what something is telling you. It's about whether or not it actually makes you believe it. And I think this show makes you believe it and makes it really continue to resonate. At 4, we have this lovely series, Spy Family. 2 seasons aired this year. They were both fantastic. When I reviewed these, when I kind of broke down their appeal of them, one of the big things I focused on was like the trifecta aspect of the series. That at once you've got goofy kid comedy, heartwarming family slice of life, and lore-driven spy espionage action, right? And I think that is super, super important to the appeal of the series, is that they hit all 3 levels. But I think a big reason for the success just comes from the sheer fun of the premise. And it's not really about, the opportunities afforded to you by the premise and its diversity, but instead just that the premise sounds so fun. That people hear about it, they see the first episode, they see how it's going to go down, and they're like, yeah, that's a recipe for fun. And I think it's telling that before this was a huge anime, where a lot of the qualities I went on at length about emerged from the amazing, amazing, amazing production of Cloverworks and Wit. This was a pretty huge manga. This was, like, among manga fans, one of the more discussed series, one of the more anticipated series. The hype when the anime was announced was, like, through the roof. And I think it's in manga that, like, premise is king, right? Like when manga is being pitched to a magazine, it's often mostly on the strength of the premise. When people are skimming through new volumes of Weekly Shonen Jump or Jump Plus, which I think this is in, or whatever magazine, what they're looking for is something that sells them on the premise of the manga, right? I think that's like the number one motivator. And even in the West, if you're looking at like manga scanlation sites and stuff, what sticks out among a whole long scrollable list of titles is the premise. And you know, this premise is so solid. Who doesn't want to see the chaos of a telepath, a spy, and an assassin all trying to be a normal family, all trying to keep their secret lives secret from one another? I mean, that's just a great premise. And at the end, it all sprouts from that. Okay, at number 3, we have Tatami Time Machine Blues. And I started getting into this in the review, but it really struck me that I think what makes this franchise so beautiful to me, what makes it so magical, what puts me in a mood almost unlike almost anything else I see in any medium, is this feeling of calmness observing chaos. The plot itself is just constant crises, misunderstandings, peril, despair, everybody flipping out, running around, trying to make things work, constantly at the verge of failing. And then often the narration is quite frantic as well. It's keeping pace, describing all the different character motivations, describing the intricacies of the situation, the consequences of failure. There's a lot for the narrator to get through, leading to this series' infamous subtitles pace, where often a paragraph will just pop up on screen as the narrator frantically whips through sentence after sentence. But it's detached, too. There's never that much emotion in the narrator's voice. He wants to be thorough, he wants to be complete, he wants to give you the full account. But it's also retrospective. It also is nostalgic almost. That what he wants to express isn't, I'm currently facing this type of despair, I'm currently panicking, but instead, I can remember when we were all afluster about this or that. And thus, our experience, which is one step further removed, having no responsibility for educating ourselves, but instead just being blasted by the torrent of information, even though there's an overwhelming amount of things coming at us, we're so removed, we're so serene, we're poetic, as if all of the wisdom to be gleaned from the series about romance, interpersonal dynamics, friendship, university, the springtime of youth, all of that wisdom feels like it's already within us. All of the insights we can make about the plot, about predictions, about how different forces will interfere with each other, it feels like it's already there. It feels like we already know. And then it makes this sort of timeless, crystalline feel, like reading a classic novel, where we enjoy ourselves, we're moved, we're touched, we're caught up in it, but it feels like it's already been there for us in a way that's very comforting. Great series. At number 2, we have the finale, the long-awaited finale of Mob Psycho. Part 3 of this fantastic series. And I honestly think, like, now that it's over, looking back at it, how complete it was in its adaptation, how well it understood everything. Could we have ever asked for a better manga adaptation than this? Could we ever have dreamed, you know, being fans of the manga way back in like 2012, that once this series is animated, could they possibly have done a better job than this? Something that understands the charms of one's art, but then also brings the fight scenes to this unprecedentedly creative, totally unique form of Sakuga. Like somebody that understands the vision one has in drawing these fight scenes, and that they're not quite the same as any other fight scenes. But then also understanding the moments of emotional depth, the characterization, the small but deep moments of connection, and bringing that out in such both goofy and minimalist and dramatic character animation that still has like such subtle underpinnings, that still has like small movements highlighted, bringing about such emotions. this is the standard that I'm setting for the Dungeon Meshi adaptation. Two of my favorite manga, two manga that I would be happy to put in like my top 10, both getting anime adaptations from a studio I love, from a studio that's renowned for excellent work. Bones did it with Mob Psycho. They took their time. They did 3 complete seasons. They did the whole thing. They understood it. They brought every aspect of it to life. Can Trigger do it with Dungeon Meshi? We're gonna see. We're gonna see, but I hope so. I think this is a standard that's extremely, extremely high. You know, I honestly couldn't think of how it could have been done better. But it's achievable. If they understand, if they're willing to put in the time and work. This is how I want my manga to be adapted. Okay. Lastly, we have the adaptation of a manga that I haven't actually read, and that I don't think would ever reach the heights of Mob Psycho or Dungeon Meshi for me. A humble 4-koma, a humble cute girls doing cute things series where it's all about just kind of picking up a hobby and sharing that with friends. But what a masterpiece emerged. I am, of course, talking about Bocchi the Rock, my favorite series of 2022, and honestly, one of my favorites of all time now. Like, something that is in that slice of life pantheon, but has a unique place in it too. Like, it's from the underworld or something. And yet, I realized when I was thinking about just like, damn, like how much I love this show, like how indisputably it was #1 for the year for me, like how many scenes and moments impressed me so much, and how wonderful the phenomenon resulted from it. I realized, like, for all the love and hype and popularity the series has, my own personal obsession has really changed from the days of like K-On! Or Yuri Yuri and stuff. Like, back in the day, if I liked a series this much, I would have dropped like $1,000 on it. I would have bought the Blu-rays. I would have bought all the merch I could find. I would have bought cosplay. I would have done this. I would have done that. Like, I would be reading, you know, all the non-lewd doujinshis. I would be like shipping the characters extensively. I'd be going on A and like arguing in defense of it. The list of ways that my love for an anime used to manifest used to be like 10 times longer. I don't know, it was like a strange realization, but I appreciated the fact that they don't necessarily have to go hand in hand. That I can still feel the same depths of appreciation for a series without it taking over my life like it used to. That it wasn't a like bi-causal relationship where my appreciation necessitated an obsession that would feed it. But instead, I just still have the wisdom and the depth of understanding I gained from those days to just truly love a series like this. I don't know. This is a much longer discussion. I don't need to get too into it, but just kidding. While I was making these slides, I was thinking about it and thinking about how had the series come out like 10 years ago, I would have bought the Nendroid in a heartbeat. I would have pre-ordered all the Nendroids they announced for it. And I thought, yeah, I'm like glad that it's not that intense, but it doesn't need to be 0 either. And I pre-ordered the Hitori Goto Nendroid. I just had to. It's just so cute. It's just so funny. And I just love this series so much that I'd be happy to see her around the house. There's no final point. I guess I forgot to write it. There's going to be 4 for each of them. But you know what? That's fine too. We'll call it quits here. A reasonably length anime video for once. These are the anime I loved best in 2022. It was a fantastic year for anime. And I can't wait to see what I love in 2023. Goodbye.